Today we're going to be talking about getting your CFRE designation or your Certified Fundraising Executive designation. And I've been trying to do a lot more videos for young fundraisers just starting out on professional development opportunities, training opportunities, and CFRE is one of those. I'm a CFRE and it was instrumental in my career path. So today we're joined with Tom BEREKOFF, who is the International Chair of CFRE, and he is going to talk to us about how to become a CFRE, the benefits of becoming a CFRE, and much more. So with that, let's welcome Tom. Well, welcome, Tom. I am very excited to talk to you about the journey in fundraising, and I thought you'd be perfect because you are with CFRE. And I talk a lot about the CFRE or Certified Fundraising Executive process and accreditation. And I just want to make it very clear, I'm not affiliated. I don't get paid. I'm just a very proud CFRE.
Well, thank you. We're excited that you are and grateful that you are. It is a very important credential for almost 8,000 fundraising professionals around the world. And we hold that very, very dearly and significantly as we try to work with all of our participating organizations to really advance the profession.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about CFRE and what is it and what are some of the benefits of it?
Thank you. So the CFRE credential is a voluntary credential that really an individual chooses to take as a step of recognizing their professionalism. It reflects their professional full-time commitment in the profession, their productivity and work in it, their commitment to education, and their commitment to service. And so really it's a holistic view about what does it take to be and remain a fundraising professional today.
You know, what are some of the reasons why we would want to, because I'm just thinking of some of our viewers they're looking at it, they're looking at how can I become a better fundraiser? So what are some of the reasons someone would want to pursue this?
Well, first and foremost, it is the only globally recognized credential for fundraising professionals in the world. We are ANSI and ISO certified, so we go through that rigorous process. So again, it has a degree of caliber of qualification and professionalism associated with that. But probably most importantly, Joanne, it's that personal satisfaction of this is what I'm doing as a person, as a professional, my commitment to my work, to the charities, to the clients, whatever your role might be that I serve. And I proudly put that before you that I have taken the time painstakingly to get and sustain my credential.
So what's involved in the process of obtaining your CFRE?
Terrific question. So initially, there's an application process where you go and you provide CFRE International with a snapshot, if you will, of your professional background. At least 36 months of work in the past 5 years, professional work. You demonstrate that you have about 80 hours of professional credit in terms of educational work. And then you have also a measure of productivity that demonstrates you've raised a certain amount of money in the various dimensions of fundraising. So it again reflects the fact that you are active in the field today. That goes into CFRE International. Generally, the applicant receives approval to proceed to the exam, and then you pay for the exam itself, and you have a year to decide how and where and when you want to sit and to take that exam. It could be done in a central location. It could be done virtually now through our Pearson VUE provider. So you have all kinds of flexibility and you have time to prepare for it, even beyond your application.
Now, I know when I started my journey as a fundraiser, there wasn't a lot of educational opportunities. I had to learn on the job. I had to tap into mentors. I had to read books. I had to do a lot of outside things. So is there any new resources for fundraisers where they can learn some of the basics, some of the fundamentals?
There are a host of resources, Joanne, and it starts with, we have a number of books that we recommend that CFRE applicants look at before they take the exam. They don't have to read them all, but there are 14 books that are recommended. A number of them are comprehensive in nature. Some are very focused on the various domains in which you're going to be tested. And then beyond that, we have a host of folks who are affiliated with us, organizations that are certified education providers. So they have gone through the rigor of saying, this is what we're offering. We would like that to be eligible for CFRE educational credits. Those are also ways in which you can hone and prepare. And then the final thing I would say is we have over 30 participating organizations who are directly affiliated with CFRE. And not only are they important because they offer educational programs that help you prepare for your CFRE, they offer other educational programs for the profession, but they also then enable you to get a discount on your application. So there's an advantage to that affiliation as well.
Yeah, I know a lot of webinars that you can take nowadays have CFRE points that go along with them.
Absolutely. So many of them, and some of those are complimentary, and they're offered by various service providers. Some come with a small amount of advertising, if you will, but nonetheless, the content is rich and direct and relevant into the field. The other thing I would say that as it relates to education is lots of our folks are active in conferences and webinars, seminars, presentations, and those things too can count towards your educational credit. So your service into the field really does matter.
So what advice would you give to someone who is just starting out as a fundraiser?
Well, first of all, welcome to the field. You know, we still have a tremendous amount of turnover in our field, and I think the choice to come into fundraising is a noble profession, and it is a profession, and it's an emerging profession even today. CFRE and all of our participating organizations work very hard to advance the status of fundraising as a profession. And so again, I think you're entering into something that's very important. And we know that charitable organizations, not-for-profit organizations globally have a huge difference in a wide realm of areas, from homelessness to food insecurity to healthcare, education, and you name it, and go on and on. But a lot of that starts and frankly ends with charity. So you're entering the right profession if you really want to be somebody who's committed to social change. Mm-hmm. Beyond that, though, I would say take the time to understand your profession. And the profession really is, it sounds simple, and it is. At the end of the day, it's about relationships with donors as well as beneficiaries and your organization. But it's more than that too. It's really about understanding that, in fact, our impact is so great and so far beyond the fact that we're there to generate funds that help to advance mission, vision, and purpose. But at the end of the day, it's about creating that positive change.
Mm-hmm. One of the big things that I've noticed, because I get a lot of new nonprofits and new fundraisers that speak to me, is they don't have that basic understanding of the donor pyramid, the concentric circles, all those things that are so fundamental. And this provides us a framework to go and get that education that we need so that we are professional fundraisers.
You touch on a really, really important point, and the 6 domains of CFRE relate to donor and prospect research, securing the gift, relationship building, volunteer involvement, leadership management, and ethics and professionalism. So you're right, it covers the full gamut, and the resources identified and otherwise available to prospective certificants is really wide and vast. So again, you're right, CFRE does provide a framework for you to advance your professional status.
Yeah, I use my old CFRE manual quite often when I'm doing posts on social media. I'll just flip through it for some inspiration, and it'll be like, yes, that's one of the basics. We should definitely do something on that.
Hey, talking out of school, Joanne, I had my first CFRE. I took my exam in 1994, so I'm a 10-time renewal, and I'll be doing my 11th time in 2024. This is a continuous learning process. And I know we talk about that in virtually every dimension of life, but it's really true about fundraising. There are lots of rubrics and staples that really have been constants for us. Like you had said, the donor pyramid, the fundraising cycle, et cetera, et cetera. But there's lots of change in that as well. And I think even your firm, for example, really reflects the fact that the digital component of what fundraising represents today is an increasingly important and diverse way for us to engage broader audiences. Technology really has helped to advance fundraising, not necessarily change it. I would say advance it. We're still about people. We're still about relationships. It's just we're doing it a little bit differently now.
The fundamentals still apply in digital fundraising. They still apply. It's just the technology that's changing a little bit.
Absolutely. You know, and I have to, I'm a cheerleader for our profession. So I've been in it now for almost 40 years. It doesn't ever get tiring. The absolute awe of the willingness of donors to invest in incredibly important causes. to work with people who are really committed to providing service, to work with the beneficiaries. And really, the forgotten link oftentimes in charity today is the beneficiary. They have incredible stories. And the stories that are enabled by the investment made by donors through charities is incredible. And we need not forget that. It's really important that, and that's the all important, if you will, stewardship loop. And if we talk about the fundraising cycle per se, that probably is one area where we still have, a ways to go. It's beyond the numbers, but it's into the story. And then it's the demonstration that we're actually making impact, outcome, positive change, because that's what our world expects of us. And increasingly, we are the first and the last post that gets it done.
I did a video a while back about how do you, because I'm active on Quora and I get a lot of questions about how do you know that a charity is legitimate? How do you know that a charity is worthwhile? And one of the tips was, is their fundraiser a professional fundraiser? Do they have a designation? Are they member of say AFP or CAGP or any of those bodies that help legitimize the profession?
Absolutely. I agree with you completely. And that is an important benchmark or baseline for donors to look at, not only to affirm that, in fact, the charity is registered with CRA or with 501c3 if you're in the US, but also to look at what is the composition both of your board, but also your staff. And are the staff committed to professionalism? And just a bit of a sidebar there, Joanne, what we know from our work with participating organizations is that CFRE certificates actually are appreciated greater within the sector by their employers. They advance more quickly, they stay in the field longer, they actually raise and support, get more remuneration, if you will. They're paid better over the course of time. So that's part of the value proposition too. I don't think we do our certification for that purpose, but in fact, it does provide an ROI to us as well.
It does. It does. It gave me, because I was quite young when I entered the profession, so it gave me just that added little bit of credibility, being a young fundraiser, that I was a CFRE and that I achieved certain milestones in my career and passed an exam to be able to get that certification.
You were right. And I can't tell you how many times over the course of a career when I was working with an organization or even in my role as counsel now, they'll say, well, what is that CFRE? What does that mean? And the opportunity to unwrap that for them, to explain that what we've just been talking about, really gives the donor a greater sense of confidence. And even the client charities, who not necessarily all of them are familiar with the profession as it's advancing, really appreciate that, in fact, there's a rigor behind it as well.
Okay. Well, we can't talk about advancing the profession without talking about ethics. And that was one of the most eye-opening sections for me, was the ethics around fundraising, especially when you begin to build these relationships with donors. I have one that she recently passed away. And even when I left the organization, I received permission from the organization I was with to stay in touch with her. She got in there, and I needed to continue to visit her and became friends with her. And well, I mean, there's so many areas of ethics, but do you want to give us a rundown on some of the most important ones?
I think you've touched on it really, really well. Professionalism, for sure. We are the representatives, and we are often the bridge between the organization and the donor. And that's sometimes a bridge that's not all that stable at times, because the donor's relationship is closer to you than they are to the organization. And that's where the trust is built. As professionals, we need to be sure that we're representing the organization, its mission, vision, and purpose at all times, and that we're not creating a deficit if, in fact, we step out of that organization at any point in time. So again, keeping in mind at all times, the relationship ultimately is between the charity and the donor, and also between the donor and the beneficiary. We are that important conduit, that glue, if you will. I think another important part of ethics today is, and I'm so glad to see it, our raising of the bar of idea, inclusiveness, diversity, equity, accessibility. These are important things that I think our field has tried to lead with for a long time. We maybe haven't named it as such, but I think now that it's becoming far more prominent and prolific and significant, in fact, influencing donors, how charities operate, how fundraisers conduct themselves. This is a great time of illumination for all of us, and to be mindful of what idea really, really means.
Was there anything else that you wanted to add?
If I could, back to being a cheerleader, I certainly would encourage anybody who has questions or would like to begin to pursue their CFRE credential to get a hold of our office. We'd be happy to help you. We have a great team of professionals there who are completely dedicated and completely client-centered. And then the other thing, just back to the profession, this is the best profession for anybody to consider. You know, it is rewarding from the standpoint of being change agents. It is important because our society needs it. Canada is blessed to have one of the most mature and advanced and prolific charitable sectors anywhere in the world. And so you come into a domain in which we're well received and expected of. And so again, I would just encourage anybody who's thinking about a career in fundraising, don't hesitate.
Yeah, no, I am so blessed to have, I followed my favorite aunt into it. She was one of the first CFREs in Calgary, where we're from. And I followed her into the profession. She introduced me to everyone around AFP, the Association of Fundraising Professionals, encouraged me to get my CFRE and was a mentor to me. And she's retired, but not really, because they don't know that you could ever really retire. It's too hard when you've learned to help and you have that skill set where you can really make a difference. It changes you.
That's a beautiful thing. And I think that does reflect what the fundraising career leads, because my hope, again, I'm at that back end or near the back end of that 40-year career, but I'm hoping never to retire as well, because it's just so gratifying to be able to serve. You know, that whole notion of working together, working with, there's a power to that, and it creates momentum, and it does create change. And only our sector can create that.
Well, we're going to put your contact information below, all the information for CFRE, because I know the first time I contacted them, I didn't think they would respond. But they're so lovely. They always answer any questions I have and get back to me right away. And
you know, from Paul Cavassos, who looks at your application, to Ashley Greenwood, to Sarah Duginski in the exam, to our absolutely phenomenal CEO, Eva Aldrich, who is a thought leader for our field in itself, and now our CEO. We just have a great team and a great board.
yeah. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you.